Hey, how's it going, guys? Drew Creal here. Thank you for watching Fusion Friday. In this week's video, there is going to be no music, so sorry about that. But instead, I've got a full 1 hour interview with my good friend Josiah Baker. Josiah is a really talented vocalist and good friend of mine, and he's a huge part of the progressive metal scene and community here in Nashville. So check it out. We had a great conversation. I just really enjoyed hanging out and chatting with this guy, and I think you'll enjoy listening to the convo. So hope you're doing well. Please like and subscribe and click that bell notification to keep up with everything I'm doing here, and I'll see you in the next video. Hey everybody, thanks for watching Fusion Friday. Today I've got my good friend Josiah Baker on the show. And Josiah is a progressive rock and metal vocalist and former worship leader. He's the tour manager for Tony McAlpine, Sons of Apollo, and Virgil Donati. Some would describe him as a whole artist package himself, who possesses a tremendous vocal talent, but also understands how to navigate the modern music industry. He is a Frank Zappa devotee and all around a central hub for all things progressive rock, metal, and fusion in Nashville, Tennessee. So, what do you think about that? Was that good enough?
That was a good one. No, it's definitely a good one. I will make a note. I only tour managed Sons of Apollo one day of that tour. I will say that. I was a sub in on one day. I got to run the show.
Okay.
But
yeah, your bands were on the road with them.
Oh yeah. With I managed Tony McAlpine for about 2.5 years, I think, and tour manage the man behind the curtain, I guess you could say, in Wizard of Oz terms. But any and all things, It was a fun run. It was a really fun run. It was a legacy tour, but it was really fun. Yeah, you nailed that spot on. It was good. Good job with the summation.
Cool, man. Yeah, so let's start off talking about you, and then we can kind of get into like the recent tour, and we can talk about coronavirus. We'll talk about a whole range of things that just kind of deal with the music industry, where we're headed, or where we think we're headed. We're going to talk about civil liberties. We're going to talk about the pandemic in general and what it means for musicians. But I want to start off learning a little bit more about you. And so what I wanted you to do was just to tell us about your musical background. How did you start singing, and what got you into progressive and virtuoso music?
Yeah, so I started singing in church. My dad was a worship leader ever since I was a little kid. Large, like congregational Pentecostal churches. So everybody jumped in and joined in singing. Was always singing with my dad or my grandpa. It was always hey, come up, you're going to sing. You don't have a choice. And he was fine with that. So very comfortable with being around people at an early age. And it just kind of grew from that. There's never been a time that I didn't, So
you just started singing at church, like
it started at church.
Did your family ask you to sing, or you just felt compelled to do it?
It was like I would say both. It was always encouraged, sometimes mandated, and I didn't mind it because whether I was up on the stage or in the pew, there was always something going on in my head. Mm-hmm. I didn't know at the time the stuff in my head was called harmony or alternate melody, but you would hear this stuff. You're like, and
that's cool.
It was a growth process, and I was very fortunate as a kid to be pushed into that and encouraged into that, and jump churches when I hit high school into a better situation where I could really thrive and lead. And next thing I knew, I think the thing that really motivated me was in middle school. I auditioned for choir, and I got turned down for my best friend who couldn't carry a tune in a bucket if his life depended on it. But he was a better, well-behaved student, and I was a class clown, and that motivated me somehow to prove that teacher wrong. And so the very next year, my freshman year, I was all-state choir all 4 years in honors choir, and it was like a nice little nudge at that teacher. But that was the nice, I guess, the first real world motivation of, oh, hey, you know, there are levels to this. You should be this. If you want to be this, you can be better. If you want to be, you just have to apply yourself. And my voice coach used to tell me that all the time. She'd almost get in tears if I chose to play the football game instead of sing with the choir for a concert or something. She was always like, this is going to get you somewhere. Playing on the football field is going to get you a knee replacement. And it did. But, you know, and it just grew from there.
Cool.
I started to hang out, and my Uncle Frank, he first introduced me. Because I grew up on CCM music. And for all the Nashvilleans, you know exactly what that is. You know. But back in the day, CCM was like, you know, DC Talk, Audio Adrenaline. I guarantee you stuff that if you flip on your Christian FM station, you're going to hear the same songs I did as a kid growing up. But it was a different world then. It was more raw or whatnot. But I grew up on that, and I didn't get into like metal until my Uncle Frank introduced me to like Megadeth in my like junior year, and I was like, oh, it was perfect time. You know, got into that. That was my rite of passage into Megadeth.
So it was Megadeth before Metallica?
It was. It was Megadeth before Metallica.
This
it was
is because of your uncle?
Yeah, my Uncle Frank, he introduced me to Megadeth, and you got to understand.
This guy.
Yeah. This is during the Kazaa days when you would like download computer aids on your family computer, you know, downloading illegal music videos and everything. So I would download all these music videos of, you know, from Hangar 18 and all this stuff, and I was really getting into it. And you know, I dug Metallica as well. I did. I'm not gonna lie. I liked both. I'm one of those few people that can like Star Wars and Star Trek. But I liked both.
How dare you?
I know. Well, the common denominator being Dave. But and then I remember, because like all through high school I'd go stay over there because he was the musical outlet aside from my dad. He was into the harder stuff, and he put on a G3 DVD, and it was the one. It was Satriani, Vi, and Petrucci. And I remember hearing Petrucci set, and he was playing Glasgow Kiss, and I saw this goofy, crazy drummer with bobbing, fluffy hair and a button-up shirt, and doing all these drum parts. And I was like, "This is weird." At first, I was literally like, "Why is that drummer playing the drums wrong?" Like, and he's like, "No, this is it." And I'm like, "This would sound really cool if it had vocals."
Was that with Portnoy?
Yeah, Portnoy. It was Portnoy and Dave LaRue. It was the trio Petrucci had for G3. Back when Petrucci had the parachute pants and the super spiky hair.
Frosted tips.
Yep.
What a great era for Petrucci,
that was
our
so
father. It's funny you mentioned G3 because that, like, the G3 DVDs, that's what initially got me into, like, extreme guitar playing. And so the one that I started with was the one that's from, like, I want to say 1996, the Eric Johnson, Vi, and Satch one. And then in 2003, my first, I guess you'd call it progressive rock concert was G3. G303 with Yngwie Malmsteen, Vi, and Satch. And when you're a kid and you go to that, man, it's mind-blowing. I saw him at the Riviera Theater in Chicago. And I think my dad took me. And just the feelings that you get when you go to your first rock concert. So like my first real concert, I think, was like the Rolling Stones or something at the United Center, Chicago. But that was my first real concert where I was actually already connected with the music.
Right.
You know, and it was very much like I felt like I had found like who I was. I was like, this is what I'll do. You know, I was like, this is where I'm headed. So that's cool.
Yeah, it's a fun world. I remember when I first heard that, I was like, I didn't know what was happening. And then he's like, well, for me, that was my passage. At first, it was Megadeth. And Dream Theater was the thing that kind of opened the gate for me. And I remember the first time, it was the Live at Budokan DVD I watched.
Yeah.
And when they played In the Name of God, and they do that, Portnoy does this drum pattern on the kick drum, and he turns the beat around. And I was like, I remember listening to that going, he just messed up. How did that get past the editing cycle? Like, he just messed up the bass drum part because I couldn't comprehend it. And then I'm like, oh, wait. And I went down that rabbit hole. And that was my rite of passage into fusion and progressive metal and all this weird music.
Well, like, I thought it was so cool that you know, were putting together that tour with Sons of Apollo and Tony McAlpine, you know, and Planet X and Virgil Donati, Derek Sherinian. Like, I couldn't believe that you were working with these guys because, like, those are all my heroes, you know, all the Dream Theater guys. But anyway, I just, you know, that's what I was really intrigued. Like, and I think the first time I met you, we went and met at, like, I don't know, Red Door or something like that, and started talking music. And I couldn't believe that someone like you was in Nashville. This was like a couple years ago, but I was like, how is this even possible? Like, I don't know, but we'll get to that stuff later. So you got into Megadeth and G3, and like, so how did you start singing that style? Like, how did you?
It was strange. It was strange for me because I never really, not to belittle anybody on what they do, but I never really got into a lot of the vocal styles I heard in progressive music. A lot of it felt kind of cop-out-ish, and with that I mean, hey, I'm just going to piggyback on the guitar melody here, and that's really the vocal melody. And so honestly, I quit listening to a lot of progressive music that had vocals. I mean, Geddy Lee's phenomenal, yes, but being a deeper toned voice, I couldn't do what Geddy Lee did. So I was like, okay, that's cool. It's over here. I'll appreciate it. And honestly, like, I just started listening to the majority of what I listened to was instrumental music. And
Yeah, me too.
Whether it be movie scores or instrumental music, and things that allowed me, or I guess allowed my brain to get on a track of, okay, here's this space that's allotted to create in. This is what you get to work with. Figure it out. And so that's just kind of the way I've always listened to music. And it's not easy, but I never really, I don't know, if something's not, doesn't have a degree of challenge to it, it's tough for me to really view it as worth doing. So I guess that's always kind of been my approach. That's not to say that I don't enjoy a good Beatles tune or a good, 1, 2, 3 chord song, but
I think a lot of people who are fans of progressive music, that's how they feel. That's how I feel, because like I grew up challenging myself to listen to things that maybe even sometimes made me feel uncomfortable, and it took me a long time to sort of appreciate pop music, I still like don't like most of it, but just the whole thought that music is just something that's going to instantly gratify you and make you just, I don't know, just like, I don't want to say like listening for enjoyment, but has a hook right away. That's just like delivered, served up on a platter to you. I've always had a hard time with music that does that, because I think the musician is the one who sort of should set the standard for, or like they're setting the message, but with pop music, it's almost like the people that they're playing to, they're sort of like letting them dictate what they do artistically sometimes. I don't know if that makes any sense.
No, it definitely does make sense. And it's also, I'll say all this and then I'll digress into a different point, but it makes total sense, and I think it's also a cultural thing. For instance, and once again, I preface this with the fact that I do enjoy a good catchy melody. I do enjoy a good 3.5 minute song. I'm not the ultimate snob. In fact, the older I get, the more I'm going back and listening to things and dissecting and understanding why there's a simple enjoyment from this. And it's because, I'm 32 now, so I'm getting older, and I'm also, I'm not like, I don't have it all figured out.
So old, man.
I know, dude. I feel so old.
I'm 32 as well.
But I'm going back and listening to things that I might have dismissed at a younger age because it wasn't in 7, 8, and listening to the beauty of the simplistic nature of certain things. But for me, there is a cultural aspect to it. Like the United States, there is no other country in the world that produces more fast food than the United States. There's a direct correlation to that. Just like Anheuser-Busch, a simple, easy drinking beer. No other country indulges itself in more Anheuser-Busch than the United States. No
Bud Light, froth train,
In the same aspect, there's a common denominator of simple, quick, easy pleasures. When it comes to music, I've toured with people who we're doing good to struggle to play in a sports bar with a quick disco throw on, throw out the stage because we got to throw the DJ up in the States, where you're doing a theater in Europe, or large festivals. And it's a cultural thing,
Wow.
Food, you talk to anybody from Italy or Spain, dinner is going to start at 9 and go to midnight. It's a whole entire process. It's a whole, it's not a quick, need it quick, gone,
Yeah.
So it's a cultural thing too. And I think it's tough as Americans to be able to unplug from that and go, let's let this digest. Let's see. And it's not everything. And I think it is starting to come back around full circle. And one of the reasons I think so is, film and long form things like podcasts, long form things like Netflix or Hulu series, things that make a person invest in something for a long period of time, and they realize they enjoy that. They feel engaged. And it's a beauty to see.
Well, yeah, and people can easily find their niche that they're into, online, and that's a really special thing. Like the other day I was scrolling through Facebook, and like I'm a huge Alan Holdsworth fan, and so I'm in a couple of different groups, and people are posting like, oh, here's Alan's 1978 demo with Jack Bruce on vocals, and I'm just like, I didn't even know that existed.
Yeah.
And now it's instantaneously being given to me, whereas like I would have had to just dig or just meet the exact right person who had that demo tape or something and was like, oh, well, have you heard this, And I did have, luckily in my life, before the internet was so prevalent, I had guitar teachers, I had older brothers and people that would show you like the cool music, and I'm thankful for that experience. I'm thankful that I got to experience that, but I'm also like very grateful for what we have now, where we have, if I want to listen to a podcast about audio production, or if I want to listen to a podcast about, I don't know, anything, man, dirt bikes or something, I'm sure there's like a podcast about that, and I think that's cool. I think probably the downside of all that easy access to information is that we think that more information is better, and we don't do anything with the information that we already have. I don't know. That's just something that.
No, it's very true, and I think something that in the information age, when everything is available to your fingertips, being able to access that information, it also makes you dig deep and ask questions of yourself of, number one, what information do I even care about finding? And it makes you dig deeper and really discover your self-identity. Because what is your identity? Why are you interested in this? Can you trace the breadcrumbs back through your personal history and go, well, I'm into this because X, Y, and Z, and it dates back. What? And self-discovery is a real big thing. And with such a time we live in where you can discover literally anything you want to discover, I guess finding out your motivation for why. Why are you the way you are? Do you like the way that you are? Do you want to change the way that you are? There's all these questions that can be answered at a quick Google search. And, now all of a sudden we find ourselves with all the time in the world to do such things. And, are we sitting on the couch eating Cheetos, watching our favorite series? Not that there's anything wrong with that. I just caught up on Better Call Saul. But there's nothing wrong with it. But it's also, it's about asking the why to ourselves. And that's what I've found myself doing a lot lately.
Mm-hmm.
A lot.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. We're definitely in a weird time, and I think it's like a time where you have to, I think you got to search within, and it's really easy. Like I was talking to my girlfriend about this, but like there's this video online, I guess, of this guy who's going for a jog and he's checking all of his neighbors' like trash receptacles. And he's like opening up their bins, and he's seeing like all of these bottles of alcohol and wine and vodka and beer cans and White Claw, and he's just jogging from house to house like, oh, let's see what these guys have. And I think you can either indulge right now and consume, or you can sort of hit the reset button and start that project that you've always wanted to start, or something like that. And you can take some time to learn right now, or to invest in something that you haven't invested in. And I think there's like potentially this dichotomy between people who are sort of sitting around waiting for the government or for other people to tell them what to do now that society has shut down. And then there's another sort of way that you could go, which would be to try to adapt, you know? Yeah. And so, I mean, when this whole thing started, when this pandemic started, I was like really afraid, man. For like a couple weeks, I was like, how am I going to pay my bills? You know, I was just like thinking about like, how am I going to get, you know, how am I going to get money? You know, I'm going to be about $1,500 short this month, the way things are looking. And what ended up happening is I had started teaching more lessons. You know, I'm a guitar teacher. I started teaching more lessons than I had before the pandemic because people are just sitting around and they want to learn something. So thankfully that worked out for me. I know that's not true for everybody's career path, but what do you think about that, man? Like, what do you think about the pandemic? And you can really talk about anything. I have so many questions for you on that.
Did you start a fans only page too?
Yeah, definitely. You know, definitely OnlyFans, Shred Riffs on Instagram if you're listening. Got the OnlyFans link in there in the bio.
Beautiful, beautiful. The things people will do for guitar pictures. But
yeah, man.
No, dude, it's true. When this thing hit, we were on tour. We with Tony, we did a 2-month run. We did the first month was based around. We had to build headliners around a tour because you know you can't just do one of these zigzag routes and not fill in the gaps. So we built a week of headliners out to the West Coast to start our first date in Sacramento with Sons of Apollo. We did that for a month. We took a week off. And then we went back out because we had a second leg of shows with Emil Wursler's band Verlorner as the opener, which was insane. That was their first time playing live. It was a trio. It's Danny Pascal, phenomenal drummer from Atlanta scene, plays with Ike Willis.
Wow.
Yeah. And then Emil Wursler, of course, from Doth, Camara, Tony, one of PRS's head clinician guitar players, just a phenomenal human and player.
That's great.
And then
Incredible.
Ryan Knight from Black Dahlia Murder was on second guitar. So it was like, it's cool to be homies with these guys, but then also get to see them in their element doing their thing every night. And there was like no way that second leg was not going to happen. So we did it. And, you know, we went all the way back.
So when did the tour start, and then when did it wrap up, just to give people an idea in relation to the pandemic?
January 14th was the first show here in Nashville. At Mercy Lounge, maybe, I think. One of those three, the small 3-room at...
It was at the High Watt.
High Watt, that's it.
Yeah.
That building, yeah.
I was there.
Yes. That was the first show. That started January 14th, and it ended in Las Vegas March 17th.
Yeah, that was like literally like the next day.
Yeah, yeah. So we did this whole run, and like we had some stories from that tour because we did Juarez, Mexico, and that was an experience.
Wow.
Yeah, literally driving in 3 hours behind because of border issues. And then walking back across the bridge. Literally, we got pictures walking back across the bridge at 3 a.m. from Juarez into El Paso. The same bridge from, is it There Will Be Blood or No Country for Old Men? That scene, that exact shot. Dude. We're like walking over the bridge, getting chills.
The heck?
Yeah, dude. We got to that. Just a little side note here. So we get to this place called the Annexo Bar. And Ryan tells me a buddy of his just played a show there the week prior. And he's like, yeah, he says it's the nicest club in Juarez, man. And I'm like, okay, I don't know what that means. But so we cross in. The promoter meets us on the U.S. side. He's like, ride with me. It'd be cool. We ride in, and we're in a big, dually Sprinter van pulling a trailer. We pull up to the border. The agent goes, she says something to him in Spanish, and I hear the word comercial, and she shakes her head, and we're like, oh, boy, here we go. We're already 30 minutes behind at this point for load-in. So she makes us go all the way back in, come all the way back out, and we pull over to this guy, the promoter's local watering hole there, and he's like, hey, they won't let us in because of the trailer. You could have offered her $100 and she probably would have let you in. And I'm like, dude, I'm not going to offer a border agent money because number one, she's either going to play it hardline and I'm going to be in total trouble offering money to a border agent, or number two, she's going to be like, that's not enough money. And then I'm in trouble again. So
it's
he's
too
like,
much risk.
He's like, well, so what we got to do? We got to load all of our gear into these pickup trucks. So I load it in mine, and Emil just happened to have a friend of his, and that was attending the show that lives in Juarez, and he just happened to be there. And so we loaded all our gear in the back of pickup trucks.
Oh my God!
At this point, we're 2 hours behind.
God.
For load in, and the two locals have already played. We get there. Finally, we get to the venue. It's a load up a narrow hallway, smoke-filled hallway. There's a picture of Darth Maul on the wall as we're walking up. Perfect. We walk in, grimy little dark bar right here. Huge empty room with tables and chairs. Well, not empty. I mean, there was probably, I don't know, 100, 150 people. We had already heard there had been like 75 people that had left because by the time we got there.
No,
by the time we get there loading in, it's 12:30 at night.
God.
So we do it. We walk in. We're starving. We've not ate anything. The food provided it. We had it to the right of us. We look, and it's like beanie weenie hot dogs and burritos, like literally beanie weenies in it. We were hungry. We didn't care. We ate it. The curtain between the green room and the stage is a shower curtain smear, and it's got blood smears all over it. And we're like, okay, sure. So we do the show. It's not bad. It's super dark the whole entire time. Everybody's really appreciative. But we got out of there, but we didn't have enough vehicles at the time to take everybody back. So we sent Tony back with the promoter, and the rest of us just walked. And we walked back
to El
Paso across the bridge from the venue in Juarez. And
this is the stuff that most people don't know about touring.
No, they
especially don't. At that level. You think of like, oh man, like progressive metal. Tony McAlpine, he's a legendary guitar player from the late 80s, you know, has had a career all across the 90s and early 2000s. Planet X, you know, Steve Vai, played with Steve Vai. And still it's like you can make a movie out of that.
Oh,
like,
dude, it was
that sort of thing. I have similar stories from when I toured that are similar. I have also experienced some sort of blood-stained smear, like on like a door of a place we were staying at. You know what I mean? Like there's just so many weird. That's man.
Well, what's insane to me was too like on that same. We had 2 Mexico shows on that leg, and the night and day difference between the Juarez and the Mexicali experience. Because when we got to Mexicali, Mario Miranda, shout out to Mario, who runs Mexicali Prague. I had met him when I did the Aristocrats tour about 5 years ago, and it was beautiful. There's this place called Bowl, and it's a bowling alley with a music venue in it. And I'd been there before when Virgil and Alan had played together. They played that same room that we did. And this guy just knows what he's doing. Like, he meets you on the side of the border. He rides in with you. He went to school with the girl who's the border agent. There's no silliness. You go straight through. Everything's kosher. He's like one of the top dentists in the whole entire country of Mexico. Cool. So we go through. There's like 300 people in attendance. It's well attended. It's well received. Great total festival style setting. Treated well. No problems at all. One of the greatest concerts I've probably ever been a part of. Night and day difference. You know, difference in promoters, difference in cities. But sometimes you get treated like royalty. Sometimes you don't. But we were, you know, we had a great run that week. And fast forward, we go back up through California, do a music school. We do San Diego, Brick by Brick. We're in Los Angeles at the Universal Bar and Grill on March 16th, and we're sound checking. And it's a nice sold-out show at this room. And we're sound checking, and then I'm looking up at the TV, and the Utah Jazz are playing basketball. And on the other TV, it's President Trump talking. And on one TV, it's Trump talking about the European ban is going into effect. We were supposed to do, after a week off, we were supposed to go do a month in Europe.
Yeah, that's right.
And I'm like, gosh. I'm glad that I never finalized the deal on those tickets, because it was kind of a waiting pattern, because this whole entire 2-month tour, we were hearing about coronavirus on the front end, and Tony's wife lives in Spain, in San Sebastian, and she was like, hey, this is what's going on over here. You need to go ahead and pump the brakes on that.
Yeah.
And so we did ahead of time, and it kind of like, because it would have not happened. We would have been out $7,000 in flights and all these issues that would have transpired. But yeah, we heard about the European ban on the second to last show. watched the Utah Jazz player and that game get canceled because he tested positive, all in the middle of our show in Los Angeles. So we did the show. The next day we do our Las Vegas show at Counts Vamped, and that was the end of the tour, and we deadheaded back, and literally we're driving back, and it's like watching the end of the world every time we turn around, every truck stop we stop at, and we're like, you know, and of course the thing that's going through our mind, because we had 2 or 3 guys that had like near-death experiences on tour from illness, and we were like, have we already had this thing? Have we been circulating it? We don't know. It was just really bizarre, you know, and the fact we were blessed that the fact we were able to finish a brutal schedule like that and finish every show without canceling, because literally the day we did our last show, the venue shut down indefinitely, everything shut down indefinitely, and here we are. So it was weird. It was weird.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. I can only imagine, like, I just remember trying to put the puzzle pieces together, you know, and I think, like, for me it was like, I'm just local to Nashville. I'm not traveling, but I can only imagine how much more, you know, scary it was to sort of learn that information while you're out traveling, and especially because, like, if I put myself in Amel's shoes, where like that's his livelihood, you know, is touring and traveling and playing guitar, you know.
It was, man, and
pretty scary
on the front
predicament.
end, because we were in a different city every single day. Part of it was like you were seeing all these different parts of the world you're just like, everything seems business as usual here. You know, we weren't like constantly sitting there in front of a television or scrolling through our phones, reading all these reports. So we were in a bit of a static vacuum. And we were eating, you know, truck stop food every day. And
yeah.
So there was that. We're like, hey, if our immune system can survive in this, it can survive in anything. But with Tony, it was a grave concern because, you know, he's 60 years old, stage 4 colon cancer survivor, and his wife survived stage 4 breast cancer. So, you know, which she's currently going into treatments again for another round of it. And so there was these things, because somebody who obviously had immune system issues, he was concerned about it.
Absolutely.
So we were also concerned about it as well. But it was bizarre to be out, you know, in the world while all this stuff is going on, the pandemonium, you not knowing, and it affected attendance too, because you would have on average 20 to 30 pre-sold tickets that people purchased that were never claimed at the door because people were constantly being bludgeoned, and rightfully so, with the coronavirus pandemic, and people were afraid to go out because a lot of Tony's fans are of the older generation. I mean, he has young fans and old fans. He spans all generations, but we had a lot of people that were taking precautions not coming to live events. So we ran into that. But yeah, it was bizarre.
Yeah, man. That's insane.
What was it like here? Like with the lead up and everything?
Well, it was like a progressive kind of thing, you know, I teach at a school, you know, during the day. And you know, we had just started the 4th quarter of school, you know. And so I would drive to this school 4 days a week, and very quickly I just got a string of emails, you know, saying that, you know, we're not going to be holding school anymore. We'll be doing remote learning, you know, which is fine for me. I actually prefer that for this situation because it saves me 2 hours of my day in the car. But I also teach guitar at like a family owned and operated music store. And, you know, there's hundreds of people going in and out of there every day for lessons. And I think for a couple weeks, like right before everything, like when they closed all non-essential businesses, like we're a non-essential business, you know, but a couple weeks prior to that happening, we were just like, we had signs up that said like, wash your hands and that kind of stuff. And, you know, basically parents are given the option to do online or come in person. Most of my students still came in person. But that quickly shifted, you know, when they eventually the store managers and the school, I basically just sent emails saying that we're going to do everything online, which is great. It was great to sort of adapt. And I love, from like a resource point of view, it cuts down on travel. It cuts, I was spending 15 to 20 hours a week in my car.
Oh yeah.
Just to go to all the places that I needed to go. And I don't get paid to drive, So right off the bat, I was stoked, But I was also kind of scared because I lost, a handful of students. But yeah, I mean, you had different bars downtown that were like I think Kid Rocks and Tootsie's were some of the last to close. Also the first to open in phase 1, which I thought was kind of hilarious. But yeah, man, it's just, this whole city operates on like a tourist, a tourism thing where you have a constant flow of tourists from all over the world, mostly probably domestic, people coming here for their bachelorette party or their whatever sort of event that they're celebrating. And people just love coming here for a weekend and just partying downtown. And it's great. I have so many friends that play in bars and restaurants and work in restaurants downtown. And it's very weird to be in a city where that stuff is not happening,
Especially when like that is the A and B market of a city.
So you have in Nashville, you have all of these like larger companies that have moved to town because they like Nashville. It's cheaper taxes, I think, for them. And so you have a lot of, like, you have a younger workforce here now, people like our age, from age, 24 to whatever, people with their first kind of job, customer service job, whatever. And then you have all of these fun things to do. You have literally a million different restaurants and then 3 versions of each of that restaurant.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I don't think people understand how many places there are to eat here and how many interesting bars and how many there's, and all of, when you take that out of the economy, it's really devastating. It's going to take 5 to 10 years for this to recover,
What I've noticed, and it's, first off, I can preface this, my wife's a nurse. I understand the medical precautions and everything. For me, it's kind of reached a point because, I do all this touring stuff, musician stuff, but I also have always maintained a sales position job where I'm currently at now, and we're thriving. It's in the automotive field. But one thing I've noticed is kind of like, at what point does one other person get to pick whose job is deemed necessary? Because it's all a matter of perspective. Like, if I'm not a person that runs a family-owned music store and that's what that person, I can look at that place from my perspective and say, oh, that's not essential. That's just, someone strumming guitars, whatever. They can wait. Or if I'm not in the restaurant business and I can drive by the barbecue spot and go, well, yeah, that place really isn't necessary. It's not necessary to everyday life. But to the person that owns that place and has sunk 20 or 30 years of their life and their family's lives into that place, and that's their livelihood, that's how they put their kids through school, that's how they eat themselves and feed their kids, that place is pretty darn necessary. And for me, it's kind of tough to be like, what do you deem necessary? I don't know. I don't know the answers, but it's just kind of a weird area that we've reached.
Personally, and look, I'm not a scientist. I'm not a doctor. Like, I don't know what is the best thing that we should do, but I think it's extremely unreasonable to ask Americans to shut everything down for more than a month. I think that's ridiculous that we went in that direction as a country. That's just where I'm at with it.
Yeah.
Like, personally, I think that the government has no business telling us to do that. Like,
honestly, I feel the same way.
Public safety is it's important, man. Like, yes, I don't want the virus to continue to spread, but people are they people should be more responsible for themselves, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
You know, if you want to be an idiot and go out, you know, like let's say during the peak of the pandemic, which I think it's already passed, you know, but there's a lot of talk that it's going to be coming back. But if you want to go out and live your life as usual, like I think you should be allowed to do that, but also potentially like discouraged by those around you. But if you want to be extremely cautious and stay at home, then that is your choice. But I don't think the government has any business shutting down businesses. And
No, I don't either. But it's for me. I mean, I should preface this also with the fact that I'm a hardcore libertarian type person, where I believe you have a right to make choices for yourself. Now, I do understand the side of where people come back with that. Well, what if it affects others? I understand that, but ultimately, it's my choice to go where I go, to do what I do, and the degree of safety to do what I do. I've always used hand sanitizer and washed my hands. Now, I can't say that for the majority of guys I see next to the pisser beside me, but I've always tried to maintain good sanitation skills. And I also think that, you know, if people have to earn a living, I mean,
yeah,
there's the backside of this. People are losing everything they have. Their savings falling. You know, it's a good time to be a bankruptcy lawyer, because I can only imagine the line outside the door. Because when you don't work,
15% unemployment right now.
yeah, it's insane. I started, you know, when I first went on the Tony tour, it was the greatest economy I'd ever seen in my life. And now it's like, whoa, you know, and when things happen like that, and you can tell driving around Nashville between a tornado and COVID-19, there's been a mass exodus of people that moved here with a hope and a prayer and a, you know, whatever reason they came here to start a business or to become an entertainer. When you live in an entertainment city that's based off of entertainment and tourism, and when those two things are deleted from a local economy, not everybody can work at Walmart. You know, so it's just the law of supply and demand. People are going to have to disperse. People are going to have to go to places where they can at least get a job and earn money, and people have to do it. And unfortunately, the sobering fact is, in the old American adage that we've always lived by, is you got to do what you got to do. And I got a lot of homies right now that are just like sitting and hoping and wearing their tinfoil hat or whatever, thinking that Uncle Sam is going to take good care of them. And I'm sorry, but it's not going to happen. They're going to flub it up. Look at any government agency. Look at the Postal Service right now. You know, any time you leave your well-being in someone else's hands, it's eventually destined to fail. And that's just the nature of this country. This country is about you make it for yourself. And we just kind of have to remember that right now.
Yeah, and dude, I totally, like, I agree with everything you said. And I know that there is a group of people in society that can't take care of themselves and that aren't smart enough to look out for themselves. And I think we need to help those people, you know, and I think the government does have a responsibility to care for people who are homeless or mentally ill or, you know, people, do you know what I'm saying? Like there's a certain amount of people who aren't going to be smart enough or aren't going to be resourceful enough to take care of themselves.
Yeah.
You know, and I think in that case, yeah, the government has a responsibility. But personally, and I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus, I just know a lot of people that are on unemployment that I'm just like, dude, really? Like you couldn't find another way to make like $2,000 a month to pay your bills or something, or $1,500 or whatever it costs for you to survive? Like, I've been like, you know, the only reason I say that is because I'm a guitar player and I've been out delivering food every night. You think I want to fucking deliver food? You know?
Yeah.
Think I want to, you know, I'm running 2 apps at once and I'm out delivering like a fucking psychopath. Excuse my language. And like, it's because I'm trying to survive, you know, and I don't like, maybe it would be better for me to like go on unemployment and then I'd have more time to sit at home. But I'm not going to live my life like that. I'm sorry. Like,
There's something too. There's a certain element I think we've kind of lost and that's personal pride and shame. And shame is such a dirty word nowadays. Like, I lost 40 pounds because I was fat shamed as a kid. It was good motivation. It was motivation for me to get in better shape. There's something about when I was a kid, my dad instilled it in me that when you get on the government cheese, there is a degree of shame with that. And you get on it, it's a safety net, but you don't milk it. You get on it if you absolutely have to, and it's there for people that need it. But there's something about you don't want to be there. And I made up my mind. I was like, I got laid off for 3 weeks, and I've been on again, off again with this company for close to 6 years since I've been in Nashville. It's been an open door with touring. They've been very understanding, and I've been a sales manager over several accounts there for years. And things got really dire. We didn't know what was going to happen, and they had to send me home for 3 weeks. And I was like, okay, fine. I'm not going to go get in line. I applied, got an Amazon gig, did the interview, nailed the interview. The day I was supposed to start, I got called back into the job that I'm at now again. So I'm like you. I can't. There are people that need it, and I'm an able-bodied man.
Look, and if that's you, if you don't have any other options, maybe you were a server or something like that, and you're not making any money serving right now. I totally I have empathy for people's situation. I'm not trying to puff my chest up or anything. I'm just speaking from my own frustration of, having to do whatever it takes to get by, and I do have a sense of pride in that, and I don't feel bad about having a sense of pride about doing whatever it takes to pay my bills,
Do it. Yeah. I mean, and that's part.
By the way, I did have, I will say that I have had friends send me money too, because of a couple Facebook posts I made, because I thought about working for Amazon too, and I think that was a great idea, and I was like, dude, am I gonna have to work for Amazon? Which I don't want to do, but I will if I have to. But I have had people have empathy for my situation and provide some financial assistance to me, which I never asked for, but they were just like, here you go, man. Mm-hmm. I was just like, well, geez, thanks.
Yeah.
It really does help.
And there's something to be said about no strings attached, organic benevolence like that.
Absolutely.
And I think that, I'll go back and say, I think with all the well-intentioned government programs that they're always going to be skewed and flawed because they're A, humans are involved, and B, mandatory. And there's a difference between, a government program that's basically they're taking your tax dollars mandatorily. You don't have a choice. You're going to pay those taxes, and they're going to take those tax dollars, and they're going to use it how they want. There's a difference between forceful right doing and voluntary right doing, and I would say, and I have these discussions with a lot of my philosophy nerds all the time and religious nerds. I think one of the biggest problems with Western civilization is the fact that I'm a member of the church. I'm a Christian. The churchianity, if you will, this was clearly stated to be their job, to take care of the sick and the widow and the orphan. It's their job to do that. And whenever government tries to step in and fill a vacuum, whether it be well-intentioned or not, they don't get it right because it's not their job to do it. It's the church's job to be taking care of widows and orphans, and that's why there are soup kitchens, and some churches are doing it awesome right now, and others are not, and who am I to whatever, but it always, whether it be, all I can take care of is me and do what, on my level, give from myself to someone else or into my local church body, and I can say my church body is doing a great job with outreach into the community right now. But to me, it's like, it's the individual and the voluntary individual group or body, whatever, they can get so much more accomplished. That's why I sometimes chuckle when I see on TV like The View or something I saw this past week, and they had Sean Penn on talking about all the multi-millions of dollars he's been raising for PPE or food for all these big inner city things. And I'm like, dude, that's awesome. He's voluntarily doing it, and he's proving the point that individuals and people voluntarily can do so much greater good than all the red tape and bureaucracies that government agencies have filled themselves with.
100% agree with that. Yeah, I agree, man. And I'll also say, the church has also dropped the ball a lot of the time with that sort of thing, and it has oftentimes become about themselves putting on a show and that sort of thing. But I agree, man. I think it is the church's job, But well, dude, let's talk about some more music stuff. You talked about touring with Tony McAlpine and Emil and going to Juarez and stuff like that, but talk about working with Virgil Donati, the famed Australian drummer. What's it like working with him, putting tours together and all that?
With Virgil, I first talked to Virgil. It was 2013. I was living in Green Cove Springs, which is a split off in the sticks from Jacksonville, Florida. And I looked on Facebook one day and saw his then bass player Anthony Crawford put a post up that they were doing like a tour. It was like 5 shows, and I'm like, 5 shows. And so I just shot him a message on Facebook, and it's like, hey Anthony, I see you, and Virgil's doing this tour. I can help you get some dates if you're interested. And immediately he's like, absolutely, I'll put you in contact with Virgil, because at that point in time, with my old band in Florida, Artelect, we had kind of tapped out what we were going to do, and we were formulating this plan to come to Nashville to kind of do a reboot as a whole entity. And I had established myself there in the Jacksonville community, which is I don't know how it is now, but then it was brutal music community, where the only thing that sold out was like monster truck rallies. And but I had formulated and I'd befriended the Aristocrats, which is Brian Beller, Guthrie Govan, and Marco Miniman at the time, and helped orchestrate a sold-out show for them. And that had been a connection there to Virgil. And Virgil called me. He's like, hey, we want to do these shows. How can you help? And I'm like, well, I can get you 3 Florida shows, a North Carolina show, and I can get you into the Atlanta Institute of Music and Media. And he was like, great, let's do it. And the exchange was, I'll do this, I'll book these and promote them for free in exchange for my band opening up these shows. And he was like, yeah, let's do it. So we did it. It was a blast. Some of the shows were rougher than others because of things you always run into at venues of, local sound guys that, well, they're there because they're the bartender's boyfriend or owner's son or some kind of screw up, not knowing how to do their job. But overall, it went really well, and I befriended Virgil through that, and then we've always maintained contact, kept in contact. Then the Ruination tour from his recent record came out, and I had to pass on that tour, but I referred Taylor McKee as front of house tour manager for that because I had hired Taylor.
Shout out to Taylor.
Yeah, worked with Taylor before. That tour went great. We put together a set opening up that show.
I was going to say, we should talk about that, man. Like, so for me, getting the opportunity to open for Virgil Donati was like, it's basically a dream, Mm-hmm. Of course, in my mind, I'm just like, oh, well, maybe I'm going to play some Holdsworth tunes with him, and maybe I'm going to go on tour with him, and I just like, how your brain just sort of like goes places, and like, but that's what happened to me, but anyway, I put together, well, actually it was you that put together this group of guys, myself, Logan Hatcher on bass, Alan Pfeiffer on drums, both really incredible local musicians into the same sort of thing. And Josiah put this group together, and we played 4 tunes, opening up for Virgil, and then another local band, Lines in the Sky, played, and I think that was it, right?
That was it.
Yeah. And so we played a couple songs from Josiah's old band, the Art Elect. And I played a couple of my jazz fusion tunes, which was really cool. It was just an insane experience to be able to play my own music that I've been working on live.
Yeah.
But yeah, what are your memories from that show?
Dude, it was fun. It felt good. It's pretty nerve-wracking because that fan base is, of course, as anal can be about everything, all musical. Put it together. It was a good turnout. It was a great show. It was nerve-wracking. I'd opened for Virgil before, been around him before, and we had, I think, maybe 3 rehearsals, maybe.
Yeah, I think
one at Logan's and then 2 at Allen Space, and that was it.
Yeah. So we put that together in 2 weeks time?
2 weeks time.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was it was an eye-opening experience for me personally as a musician, because I was very much I felt underprepared, for lack of a better way, and it was sort of like a wake-up call where it was dude, what are you doing? I was my self-talk was just you have been just beating around the bush and investing in all these other side gigs or whatever you want to call it, instead of focusing on the thing, so that when an opportunity like this presents itself, you want to make sure that you feel ready for that. So I was just sort of oh man, am I really ready to do this? And it really is. It wasn't that big of a deal.
Right, right.
But in my mind, it's well, I have to be able to play at the level that Virgil would want, if any guitar player that plays with Virgil, of course he's got Andre Neary on guitar. Yeah. And I'll be the first to tell you, I'm nowhere near, that level. He's just incredible. Definitely check him out. I don't think a lot of Americans know about Andre Neary. Definitely in South America and other parts of the world.
Amazing.
Yeah, he's one of the greatest. But anyway, I was just sort of realizing that man, I need to get my shit together, for lack of a better way of putting it. And
there's an approach that happens, and I'll say this too, because you've lived here 10 years, I've lived here 6. One of the stark differences that I noticed was the approach mentality. I remember I hosted a Thomas Lane drum boot camp here 3.5-4 years ago, and he had Rich Redmond come out and do it.
Thomas Lang, right?
Thomas Lane, the drummer,
the German extreme. Austrian.
But he came out and because Thomas does not know this number system that everybody knows here. And so one of the exercises he did was have Rich show up. Someone shouted out a song that neither one of them knew. They played the song, and both of them had to make their cheat sheet on the spot. Rich does his numbers. Thomas does his notation, shorthand. And they compared it, and it was 2 totally different things, did 2 different learning processes. Yeah. And Rich explained it. Rich is one of the greatest, one of the most charismatic dudes. I did his show with Tony not too long ago. Love him as a person and a player. But it was very interesting to see how 2 different minds approach a different thing. And because Rich is cool. Rich is the ultimate gig guy, whether it be Jason Aldean, whether it be anything, he's very well touted, and rightfully so.
He could play Rush too. He could probably do a Dream Theater song too.
Rich can do it all, man. Rich is great. But that's one thing I noticed. You talked about it's very easy because you look around the room here and you see the albums on the wall. In the city that we live in, I love this city. It's an entertainment hub. I call it Southern LA. It's LA with manners and elbow room. But one of the things that's so easy to do is to get kind of lulled to comfort of, I can always, because you get a gig, okay, what's the tunes? Okay, I make my short, okay. I can fudge this gig. They're not really going to notice. This is probably a singer-songwriter round, or this is probably I'm playing a rooftop gig and nobody really is going to pay attention. They're just there to drink and party. It'll be fine. Nobody cares as long as they dance. But then you get thrown into a gig of, hey, I got to open up for one of the top 5 drummers in the world. And
by the way, I love Virgil Donati. He did not end up hearing me or he didn't watch us perform, but I'm A-okay, dude, because
this time,
yeah, maybe maybe by the next time I'll actually be like, hey, Virgil, you want to check out our group or whatever? But yeah, dude, I was very tight that night. I was not loose, very self-conscious. You know, it just became very apparent to me that I've got to do some more work, you know, to get to that level, you know.
Well, and I think you're never done working. I think the point where someone reaches, well, I'm here, then there's somebody that's working harder, and that's always been self-motivation is a tough thing, and no matter how you apply it in business sense and military sense and music sense, there's always someone that's willing to put in more effort than you because they're hungrier than you.
Yeah.
And as a musician, you have to be constantly hungry. Is there something I can improve on? Is there a quicker setup on my guitar that I can do? You know, is there more reps? Because reps equal better. You know, what can I be doing right now? And I'm very. I mean, I'll be honest. I get almost guilty feelings if I'm relaxing sometimes, and relaxation is very important. Relaxation and rest is important to be a functioning human. But there's times where I'll be like, why am I doing this? I could be X, Y, and Z. And there's a balance to it, but work ethic and an application like that, it goes a long way. And I guess that's something in that instance for that gig. I felt the same way because I wrote 2 of the songs, and I'm like, I should have been working harder on this. I'm like, dude, you've known these songs for 8 years.
Yeah. Well, one thing that was cool about working on that stuff with you is that, you know, I haven't really played like progressive music. Most of the stuff that I do, it's from a Holdsworth kind of camp where there's chord changes, and the chords are difficult. Most people probably can't play the chords that I play. I'm not trying to shit on anybody, but
right.
Like the chord changes are really hard, and then you improvise over those chord changes. It's very airy. It's very cerebral kind of music, but your music was very like rhythmic and lots of counting. You know, I don't mess around with odd time signatures anymore. You know, like I don't. So it was a really good challenge for me. But one thing I really liked about working with you was that you could hear everything that was happening in the band, and I had never worked with a vocalist who was that thorough, that was actually like listening. Oh, like what about that bass part? You know, like we were trying, you know, we had to learn Josiah's crazy music, you know, that it's basically like learning a 10-minute Dream Theater song or something like that.
Yeah, it was very complex, and the guys that pieced it together, you know, I came in after the fact. They were actually about to disband when I first moved to Florida. And
here, try to get up on that mic.
Yes. Yes, that was, you know, I joined that band in Florida when they were ready to disband, and so I came in after the fact and had to like double in the work and effort to catch up to speed. And you know, shout out to Eddie, Johnny, and Josh, the members of that band. And it was also tough because me as a vocalist, I don't play, and so trying to translate certain things and ideas to an ensemble we had put together, it was like, how do I do this? I don't know. But luckily, I mean, you had an impeccable ear for getting it into notation and on paper. That was great. And I didn't know. I was scared. I was terrified how it was going to go, but it went really well. It was fun. And
that was a cool experience. Yeah, I guess, I mean, the key takeaway, you know, I've gone back to this a couple times now, but it's just like, if you have like a vision for yourself or a dream that you could be playing for like one of your favorite artists, and you keep working hard enough and you put yourself in the right environment, which for me is Nashville. Maybe for you it's New York or LA or something, but some type of music center. If you stick around long enough, you're going to get that opportunity. So you'll want to make sure that you're prepared. That was like what I learned from that whole thing.
And I'll also follow up with that. New York and LA is a big hard pass for me. For me, it's too many people. I'm from the South. I'm from Mount Airy, North Carolina. This is more my speed. And I enjoy, I got a lot of friends here, and I enjoy whenever they're all back up and running, all the restaurants and favorite watering holes that are around here. But yeah, Nashville's the spot. I still love this city, and I'm anxious to see. Gosh, I feel like such an old guy when I get excited about, property values might start stabilizing and get off that bubble they've been on because, man, rent's just way too high around here. But I sit around and find myself talking about stuff like that, and I'm like, who am I? Oh my gosh, am I 32 or am I 62? But
I mean, those are good things to think about for sure.
Adulting can be fun.
Yeah. Well, dude, it's been really cool talking to you for the last hour or so. Why don't you tell us what you're up to now musically, or maybe what you want to be doing, and then where we can follow you?
Absolutely. Instagram, I believe the handle is jsizzleb. I've got a few things.
I'll put that up here in the video so you can see it.
I've got a few things in the pipeline. Actually, there's a demo song I just started working with Jesse Brock from Lines in the Sky.
Nice.
He sent me a track, and it's weird. I haven't listened to a lot of guitar music lately. I've been listening to a lot of electronic. Todd Tersch is a big favorite of mine. He does a lot of excellent material. And Kevin Moore, who was actually the original pianist from Dream Theater.
Yeah.
He does a lot of electronic stuff.
Dope.
Chroma Key, and then OSI, which is him, Gavin Harrison, and Jim Matheos, the guitar player from Fates Warning. Phenomenal stuff. Really love it. And so I just texted Jesse, and I'm like, hey, what do you think about doing this? And that's what we're doing.
The GoPro's shutting down. I'm going to pop a new battery in real fast.
Oh, you are good, and I'm going to pay the water bill.